There have been many pieces that are inspired. Actually, the piece that I'm wearing is I didn't realize it at the time, but it has sort of I made these pieces so that they would move, they would quiver. They're on the back, they have little spirals. But I made this piece sort of subliminally. This is a piece, a found object. Actually, I found this. This whole piece was an old casting from the 1950s, and it was just a blank. And what I did is I found all of the other objects and layered it together.
Can you see it? That's incredible.
And then these are, this is 2 antique buttons, an old machine spring, sterling wire, and gold-filled wire, and then pieces and parts of old costume jewelry that I found and layered together. But I'll show you the back of it. And this is really sort of a, subliminally I was influenced. But if you see, I made these little spirals in the back to hold on the flowers so that they would kind of quiver in the wind.
A little bit.
So it's interesting, you know, you don't always know the influences that take you to where you are, but I haven't shown this piece to Jean.
This is a beautiful piece. It's really, and it's very light.
Yeah.
It's very light. It looks like it would be quite hefty in weight.
Yeah, no, it is light. You know, my jewelry has a substantial look, but I always think of the comfort of the user, so that's always important. And the back I made with polymer clay.
Yes,
so
I noticed that little silver gray.
But I realized that this piece, you know, if you see all the pieces on the table, you'll see that there's quite an array of things. One of the commonalities is nesting. And my birthday is July, so I'm, you know, a homebody. But there's a lot of nesting in my jewelry. You have these nesting roses and nesting over here.
It's true. Here you have nesting also.
Yes.
Yes.
This piece has an amazing story, and a lot of the pieces, I realize that as an artist, a lot of what I do is not just create jewelry, but also take old things and give them a new life.
Absolutely.
And that these things, each of the elements, and my inspiration board will show you all of the things I use: peach pits and rabies tags, leather from old boots, shell, bone, chandelier parts, telephone wire. They all show up in what I do. And I really give old things a new life and sort of continue the history, because everything that you see here had a history.
Absolutely.
And so I've created these little mini marriages. Now this necklace has a story to it. This is called Rose's Shells, and the reason that I call it that is, well, these are obviously roses, but I had bought these shells. These are called mermaid's toenails is one name. They're also called jingle shells. They're found all over the beaches in the Northeast.
Yes.
And I had gone to an estate sale, and a young man was selling off the contents of his mother's estate, and he had this box of these shells, just loose, which represented hundreds of hours of beachcombing for he and his brother, for their mother, who used to decorate all kinds of things with these shells. And she had sadly passed away, and he was selling off the contents of her estate. And I said, what was her name? And he said, it was Rose. I said, well, I am going to do something with these shells, and when I do, I will think of your mother. And as I always did, you know, when I got the box of shells, I started making shell families, the great-grandmother, the grandmother, the mother, and the baby, and I nested them, and I realized what I was making was roses. And so I call this necklace Rose's Shells. So there's always stories to what I do. This necklace, the frosting applicator tips. My customers, who are always tickled by my eye and my sense of humor about the materials that I use. I was doing a show in Corning, New York, and one of the pieces that I was showing was made of pencil eraser caps and chandelier crystals, and she was so taken with the materials, she brought me these frosting applicator tips, but at the time I didn't know what they were because there were hundreds of them. And she said, I don't know what these are, but I'm sure you could use them. So I didn't know what they were until about a year or so later. I started to play with them, and I saw they had a little aperture at the top. And then I realized they were to extrude something, and then I wrapped them up in the towel, a wet towel, and put them in the basement. I wanted to see if they'd tarnish or rust, and they didn't, so we realized they were stainless steel. And as I worked, I said, oh, these are frosting applicator tips. So this necklace, people always like the story. A lot of chefs have bought this necklace and the earrings.
And I'm wearing the earrings, by the way. This necklace is actually mine. I bought this necklace.
Yes.
And I love it. I love it. I never thought about the chef connection. What a good idea. I have a number of female friends who are.
Anybody who likes to eat.
Well, eat or cook, either one. One of the things that and you've pointed this out about your work, but one of the things that you and I had so much in common is that we are recyclers. I'm a horrendously terrible pack rat, and I can't bear to throw things away. Our business manager, who's constantly trying to get me to get rid of things in the business, I'm always saying, someone can use that. If I can't figure out something to use, because I'm a designer and I have stacks of fabric and stacks of linoleum and solid surfacing, and these are all such wonderful materials.
We need to do a collaboration.
We really do. You want a heck of a lot of solid surfacing in beautiful little cubes.
Oh, yes. There's a necklace there.
And I have always had that same drive. I also design jewelry that is made from antique things. I don't know if you know that. And I've done it for 30 years. I collect anything, the old stuff, and mix it in. People will bring me pieces that have been in their family that nobody wears and say, is there something you can do with this so that this becomes useful again? I love the idea, just as you do, of things that have a history. We may not know the history of it, but we know it has it, and somehow it takes on much greater value. Why put it in a landfill when you can make such beautiful, beautiful, usable things that then become part of someone else's life?
Absolutely. And people, when they're buying them, there's on many levels, they like when they buy something, they get a piece of jewelry from me, they're buying a piece of me as well as
Yes.
the jewelry, my point of view, my sense of humor, what I tell people is I make marriages. I put all these disparate elements together, and I call my necklaces marriage necklaces because these elements met and married in my studio, and I was the justice of the peace. But I do really enjoy taking elements, sometimes disharmonious elements, like who would ever think to put chandelier crystals with pencil eraser caps, which is what this necklace is. And it's really funny because I bought the pencil eraser caps about 25 years ago, and they sat in my passive inventory.
This sounds so familiar. And then you find them and you go, wow,
well, then
I know exactly what to do with them now, and I didn't 25 years ago.
Well, what happened is I bought the chandelier crystals about 3 or 4 years ago, and then as I go buy new inventory, I go through my old inventory because the old suddenly becomes new when
again.
it's paired with something.
Everything old is new again.
And then these slipped on, these little jackets, and so that's the pencil. These are anodized aluminum. They're probably from the 60s, and they're chandelier crystals. And faux pearls, because you should always have pearls with your chandelier crystals. And,
Absolutely.
And pencil eraser caps. But
they're the perfect marriage, actually.
Absolutely, you just never know.
You don't. But it's magnificent.
It's great on. It's fun to wear. Thank you.
It's a 1920s, 1930s blast from the past, except it isn't.
I know.
And I love the fact that so many of your pieces remind me of classic. I mean, this is Coco Chanel. She loved roses. She had all those three-dimensional flowers that she would put into her jewelry, always with pearls. And here you have mother of pearl here.
Yeah.
But it's a better marriage with the toe shells, and yet we pick up these inspirations, yours being this spectacular piece of jewelry, and look how it plays itself out in so many of your pieces.
And in this piece, you know, subliminally, this piece derived, you know, 40 odd years later, probably, I mean, not to this degree, but these are all found objects and these are planned objects.